The 1970s is such a fascinating era in F1. Although I only started following the sport in the early 90s, the more I got into it, the more I found myself attracted to its storied past. There was the incredible heroism in the 50s with big middle-aged men or one young woman, I see her there, Maria Teresa de Filippis, but yeah, mainly big middle-aged men wrestling these brutal racing machines around daunting, spine-chilling racetracks like Avus, Bremgarten or Pescara. It all got a bit more refined in the 60s with the likes of Jack Brabham, Graham Hill or Jim Clark darting over the bumps on the Nordschleife in their now rear-engined flying cigars. For me though, the 70s is when it all came together. With the general public now starting to discover this previously perceived gentleman-only sport, the commercial interest was also starting to grow. Big-name sponsors were getting involved, and with it came the glitter and glamour that gave F1 a prominent status in the era's pop culture too. Guys like Jackie Stewart, Emerson Fittipaldi, François Sévère or James Hunt were revered as if they were rock stars. The ever-looming danger lurking around every corner gave them even more of a hero status, and this all gave F1 an incredible allure that still fascinates fans to this day. The best example of that is of course the 1976 season that has been beautifully portrayed by the movie Rush from 2013. One aspect I didn't mention is the crazy technical innovations that peaked in that era too. The most famous ones are of course the 6-wheel Tyrrell P34 or the ground effect Lotus 78 or 79 cars that changed the sport forever. Another of these radical innovative machines is the Brabham BT46b Fancar, designed by the legendary Gordon Murray. This special car was an evolution of the conventional BT46 and conceived as a response to the ground effect Lotus 79 that started to really make its mark on the sport. Unlike the Lotus, the Brabham BT46 was not designed around this miracle innovation. With its big flat 12-cylinder Alfa Romeo engine hampering the underbody aerodynamics needed for the ground effect to work properly, Murray needed to find another solution. The answer laid in inducing the same effect in a mechanical way rather than forcing incompatible aerodynamics on the car. Inspiration came from the 1970 Chaparral 2J Can-Am Monster that looked more like half a plane than a real race car by virtue of the two large fans mounted to the rear. Murray integrated the same concept to the BT46 by relocating the radiators from the front of the car to the top of the engine cover and hermetically sealing off the whole rear. Attached to it would be a large fan that was linked to the car's engine through a whole complex series of clutches that could make it spin uninterrupted during gear shifts. This fan would provide cooling for the engine, Brabham claimed, and while it certainly did so, it also sucked the air from underneath the car, creating a whole low pressure zone, resulting in ungodly amounts of downforce at the cost of almost no extra drag. Brabham then debuted its BT46b at the Swedish Grand Prix in 1978, a year that was otherwise dominated by the Lotus team with their mighty 79 model. The BT46b was quickly dubbed the Fancar, but the other teams were certainly not a fan of it. The real function of the cooling fan was very much debated. It was even argued the fan could be seen as a movable aerodynamic part, strictly forbidden even back in 78. Some rival drivers also uttered concerns having a huge spinning fan pelting rocks or other debris at them when driving behind the Brabham. The FIA actually allowed the Fancar to compete, and unsurprisingly it did quite well. Brabham drivers Niki Lauda and John Watson initially tried to hide the car's real pace and even qualified on full tanks, but the cars still easily ran at the front the whole weekend. Even during the race, the number 1 Brabham easily matched the pace of the dominant Lotus of Andretti in the early part. It was clear Lauda was not pushing very hard, but once he did, he forced the American into a mistake and took over the lead. The Lotus number 1 eventually dropped out of the race with an engine failure, not being able to keep up with the Brabham anyways. Lauda's teammate Watson fared a little worse, suffering from reliability issues and had to retire as well. Niki in the end took a commanding win, trying not to finish too far ahead of second-placed Patrese. The whole paddock was in uproar after the race, but the stewards and the FIA reiterated the car was perfectly legal. Some teams already planned protesting the ruling or started making mock-ups of their own version, but in the end Brabham's team supremo Bernie Ecclestone withdrew the Fancar from the next race. You have to know that Ecclestone was in the midst of taking control of FOCA and needed all the support he could get from his rival teams. It is said he almost struck a deal to have the Fancar running a few more races, but in the end it felt better to just retire the car for good. At the end of the season, the FIA closed the loophole in the regulations and such devices were now officially banned. Now, this is maybe not that well known, but the BT46b was actually entered in another race, a non-championship round, the 1978 Gunnar Nielsen Trophy race held at Donington Park. In fact, this was more of a time trial than an actual race, and the car finished only 4th out of 5 entrants, being driven by a young Nelson Piquet. In a funny coincidence, 2 of the era's most prolific technical innovations took wins at the Swedish Grand Prix at Anderstorp, with the 6-wheeler Tyrrell in 1976 and then this Brabham Fancar in 1978. GP Replicas is only the second model car brand to make a 1/18 scale version of this special car. As you know, I have a love-hate, mostly hate relationship with this brand, and when I saw they would make a BT46b model, I was afraid it would suck as much as most of their releases. To my huge surprise, the sample pictures looked quite promising, so with the release date coming ever closer, I got more and more intrigued. The car is of course based on the Swedish Grand Prix, as it's the only race the B-Spec ran at. GP Replicas have actually released models of the normal BT46 a few years ago already, but this one is, I think, the one we all wanted to see. Of the Fancar, they made a version for race winner Lauda, of course, but also a John Watson model. Both number 1 and number 2 cars are available in driverless versions and ones with a figurine inside. It's an almost no-brainer to go for the Lauda version, but I think John Watson's helmet looks so good I could totally understand if you would go for that model instead. Having said that, I still went for the Lauda version with the driver figurine. As is usually the case with GP Replicas, their models are limited to 500 pieces each. As I mentioned, there was another model maker that released a 1/18th model of the BT46b first, and that was TSM, all the way back in 2019, I believe. Now, I think that model was actually pretty nice, although I always thought somehow it didn't look totally right, so I never got one in the end. I did get a magazine Altaia 1/24 scale model of it last year to fill in the gap until the GP Replicas would finally come out. But now that the GPR version is finally here, let's have a closer look at this very special car then. Just before we go on, quick notes, I just realized I forgot to mention GPR also made a pre-season version of the BT46 with all these radiators in the side pods. Not that it really matters a lot for this video, but I just wanted to mention it anyways. This GP Replicas model then comes in the style of packaging used on all of their standard releases these days. So there's a sleek matte black sleeve with just an off-white GPR logo on the top. The box itself is more of the same, with GPR logos on the top and on the sides as well. Only this side here has a sticker with the model's barcode and model info on it. And here you can see this is a limited edition and they're actually numbered as well. The bottom of the box then has the logo on it again, together with minimal brand info. The top part of the box then simply slides off, revealing a black branded cleaning cloth, and also an embossed envelope with the manufacturer logo on it again. Inside is a certificate of authenticity stating it really is a GP Replicas model, in case all of the previous logos would throw you off. On the back of the card they mention this model actually has an NFC tag, and also shows off a QR code with a link directly to my review. I'm just kidding, of course. It's a link to a 1-minute video related to the product you just purchased, apparently. This all sounds very modern and fancy, however the link didn't work for me and they now probably have stolen all my data through me scanning the QR code on the card. I mean, that's what I get for giving them so much grief in my videos, I guess. So with this unnecessary data stealing card aside, the model itself then is presented in a stylish and qualitative display case. The leather base looks very neat with a velour underside and also a metallic plaque in front of the left side of the car as usual. And here again you can see these models are individually numbered. Behind the car then is an upright small box that is taped in with this plastic sellotape with yet another but smaller light blue cleaning cloth underneath. Inside the box is the dustbin cover that Brabham jokingly used to hide the fan from the public's eyes. It can be clipped onto the model, but it doesn't really stay in place very well. To be fair, the real cover was attached with pieces of tape, so if you want to display the model as such, you can cut some small pieces of tape to hold it up. Also included are small tobacco brand decals for the arms of the figurine and the visor strip on the helmet. I've got to give them credit here, the packaging is absolutely mint and gives this model very much a premium feel. In the past I felt they put so much effort in making neat packaging to hide the imperfections on the model, so let's hope this release breaks that trend. So usually I'm very critical of GP replicas, and I think I'm certainly not the only one having an uneasy relationship with this brand. They have the best intentions, that's for sure, and they do seem to take customers' criticism into account. I have to admit I feel they are getting better with every model they release. This model then certainly isn't flawless, but I have to say the bigger issues aren't really directly visible, certainly not at first sight. There is one thing though that is quite important that they got wrong, but I don't think a lot of people would actually notice this. So you see this bump here on the right side of the cockpit? Well, it was actually housing an extra gauge that measured the airspeed processed through the very tall pitot tube on the nose. In short, it gave the drivers an idea on how much downforce the car produced. Now, on the model they did add the bump, but sadly in the cockpit they did not feature the extra gauge. As I said, not directly visible, but if you know, it's a bit disappointing they half-assed this feature. I think they also forgot to add the small yellow Momo branding on the steering wheel and the little switch on the right spoke. An issue then that is more visible but is also somewhat debatable and something most other manufacturers, no matter what scale, seemingly got wrong are the front wheels. It seems no one agrees which wheels were actually used, and to be fair, I've seen many different pictures showing different types of wheels. Most pictures also don't have the best lighting and aren't in the finest quality, so it's a bit hard to tell at times. The wheels on this model with the disc in the middle, let's say, have certainly been used at some point during that race weekend, it's just not very clear when. I also think that the disced wheels should be black, but again, I'm not 100% sure here. What is evident though is that these aren't the wheels the Brabham team used for the race itself on Lauda's car. Those looked a lot more like the ones on this 1/24 scale model actually. Another thing that bugs me about the wheels is that there's no tire valves in the rims. I say this almost every review that I do, but for a model in this price range and of this quality, I think I do have a valid point. There is even a tiny notch in these discs of the front wheels where the tire valve should be, so I mean, come on, just add this to your models, GP replicas. Again, even the 1/24 scale Brabham I have here does have tiny tire valves. A rather small issue then I also noticed is this sort of skirt flap that was hanging off the bottom rear of the car. And you can actually see it on the 1/24 scale model, it's much more pronounced than it is on the GP replicas, and that seems to be more correct. The exhaust exits too should be a bit more pushed back inside of the bodywork, if you know what I mean. And I think they might have missed an extra small little hole next to the left side exhausts. One more mini complaint then, but I don't like how GP Replicas always presents the wheels in showroom stance, so with the tire lettering horizontally. I much prefer the more freehand approach, especially when the model comes with a driver figurine in it. About the drive figurine, I also think that they didn't get the color of Lauda's helmet just right. It's a bit too dark, too similar to the car's red color. On most pictures the helmet seems a bit more orange than on this model. So this model certainly isn't without its flaws, but I think there's a lot of good stuff that make up for it. For starters, the overlook of the model is simply awesome. GP Replicas finally got a model more or less right, proportion-wise. I also think the paintwork is really good, and all of the decals, or decals if you will, seem to be applied neatly. GP Replicas usually does a fine job on the smaller details too, like all of these fine photo-etched Jesus fasteners all over the body of the car. The other rivet details are equally good, especially those on the end plates of the front wing and of the rear wing as well, of course. The Alfa Romeo badge then on the nose is very nice too, and it just seems to be a normal flat decal, but there is in fact some fine metallic detailing on it. The front wing then looks quite good with these cutout elements. The suspension then is maybe not that special at first glance, but I like how they noticed the special low wishbone setup with this filled in piece, and it actually really looked like that. This is not a badly modeled part or one they forgot to cut out. The cockpit details then are pretty good as well, aside from the missing details I mentioned in the cons part of this review. I also like the figurine. The helmet is not too bad looking with the semi-transparent visor and this life support tube attached to the side. The blue seat belts then are real fabric pieces with nice photo-etched buckle details, and even the crutch belts are modeled, something that is usually forgotten on most model cars. The insides of the cockpit then and the dashboard look really good in this brushed aluminium, and the gear stick lever is visible on the right. On the other side there's another small lever, possibly the brake balance adjuster I think, and the rivet detailing on the cockpit walls looks very good. The steering wheel then is nicely modeled with a fine velour texture on it. The Alfa logo in the middle looks crisp and clear as well. I then also really like this blue cockpit window that looks fine too. And the mirrors then have this nice funky positioning. This white tube here sticking out on the right side of the roll hoop is a great small detail, as is the fine cutoff ring on the other side. The body of the Brabham then had a lot of rivet bumps, and these are nicely replicated on the Model 2. The side skirts on these sidepod wings are very refined, and they even feature the hinged lower elements that are bent inwards. Underneath the sidepod side wings then, you can actually see some of the velocity stacks of the engine, which I think is very cool. The radiator grills on the top are very nice with this fine mesh texture. The back of the model then is, I think, very nicely modeled. I like how thin the large rear wing end plates look and how they continue on the inside of the rear wheels. The cars and this model's party piece then, the fan, is actually really beautifully modeled. You can see quite far inside of the fan and see the different elements like the inner blades that are quite differently shaped to the outer ones. The rivet detailing too on the outside is very good. And I love how beautifully it is shaped and integrated in the sealed off rear bodywork. The quad exhaust setups then look very nice too with this metallic heat shielding and pipes. Finally then, the wheels are nicely detailed as well, I think. I already mentioned they probably aren't 100% accurate, but I think they look more than decent. And especially these big fat rear tires look awesome. So yeah, I'm very happy someone after TSM had another crack at making a replica model of the Brabham BT46b Fancar, as it's such a fascinating car with a great story behind it. I was a bit circumspect on getting this model car at first, given it's a GP Replicas, but in all honesty I think they did this car justice. So okay, it's not 100% correct and there are a few elements missing here and there, but I still think it's a mighty fine looking model. The most important things are done right, and most fans or collectors won't even really notice the few flaws it has. The stylish base and qualitative display case certainly give the model an extra bit of cachet. So now, what are your thoughts on this model car by GP Replicas? Do you agree they did this iconic car justice, and do you also feel that they keep on improving every time? Let me know in the comments. So thanks for watching this review of the wonderful Brabham Alfa Romeo BT46b. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, like the video and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so. Check out the other content on the channel as well, like this video on another iconic Brabham machine, Elio De Angelis' last F1 car, the BMW powered BT55. In the meantime, take care, and I'll see you again in the next one.